Hello and welcome to our podcast this Sunday. Wherever you are and whoever you are, we're very pleased to have you joining with us. And we pray and we hope that this message will help you in your walk of faith. And today's message, we are going to talk about hope. It's not just any kind of hope we're going to talk about today, but we're going to talk about specifically about Christian hope. This is an amazing hope. It's a hope that has changed the world over a couple of thousand years, really, frankly, improved the world and has changed a lot of humanity for the better. It's a hope that is based in the here and now, but it's also a hope that looks forward into what is yet to come. And indeed it says, for us as Christians, that the best is yet to come. So let's talk about this hope. So we're going to talk about it in terms of the Apostle Paul. And we're going to read in a minute about the Apostle Paul, but it's worth remembering that he was being transported. When he wrote this passage from Romans that we're going to read, he was being transported under house arrest. He had a guard with him. They were travelling the Roman roads, and he was ultimately going to go to Rome, and in all likelihood, and indeed we believe this is what happened, he was going to be executed by the emperor. And he had a pretty good idea that that was the fate that was waiting for him. But let's read some verses from Romans. We're going to read Romans chapter 8, verses 24 and 25. And they will appear on the screen just so that you can read along with us. So let's read them together now. For it was by hope that we were saved. But if we see what we hope for, then it is not really hope. For who of us hopes for something we see? But if we hope for what we do not see, we wait for it with patience. You know, when we go back and when we look at that and we think about Paul, we tend to think of Paul the Apostle, the great man Paul the Apostle. But we don't tend to think actually about what Paul lost. See, before he became a Christian, he was a Pharisee. He was a respected leader in Israel. In fact, he was in what you might call the inner circles of power. He was one of those people who kind of decided which direction society was going, and he was chosen for a special mission to go and kill the Christians. He was very much an up-and-coming star in the powers that be in Israel. And now he was under house arrest. Now he was a persecuted minority, as mentioned earlier, in all likelihood heading to his death. And how? I mean, unless you are a complete nutter in this world, how on earth, when you think of what you had and what you now had and where you were going, how on earth in all that could he have hope? But you know, we know that Paul wasn't a nutter. Because if he was a Pharisee, he was very wise, considered one of the wisest of the people in the land. So we're left asking the question, where did Paul's hope come from? It's worth remembering in this story, and we all tend to know this, that Paul encountered Jesus on the road to Damascus. We talk of having a Damascus Road experience. And what we tend to forget, though, is that part of that story involves not Paul and not Jesus, but a man called Ananias. Now, Ananias was already a Christian, and he was living there, and he was told by God, go and help Paul. Paul's just become a Christian. What was Ananias' reaction? He said, no way do I want anything to do with Paul. He has been going around killing Christians, and you want me to go and speak to him? There's no way I'm going to do that. But God told him specifically to go and seek out Paul. In fact, this is what he said to him. And these are verses from Acts chapter 9, verses 15 to 16. The Lord said to him, go, because I have chosen him to serve me, to make my name known to Gentiles and kings and to the people of Israel. And I myself will show him all that he must suffer for my sake. We forget often that in God's dealings with Paul, God actually showed Paul everything that was ahead of him in his future. Now, can you imagine being told by God that you were going to lose so much? That you were going to go from being someone in the inner sanctum of power to being an outcast? That you were going to go from someone who arrested other people to being someone who was arrested yourself? And ultimately, being told by God that you're going to be put to death. And yet in the midst of all this, Paul still has hope. And whatever God said to Paul, Paul obviously counted the things that God had shown him about the far future, what was going to happen after the suffering. He counted that as greater than anything that he was going to suffer. So God's vision to Paul, it obviously had what you would call the near future. He had the task that he was going to give him, which was going to take the gospel out to the Gentiles. It had the sufferings in it. And then it had a future beyond the sufferings. And because Paul knew that the sufferings were not the end point, but that there was something else beyond that, that's why Paul could endure his current situation. And that's why Paul didn't spend all his time living just in the here and now in what's happening to him on any given day. Imagine that. House arrest for years. How easily that could have got him down. If you think about your day doesn't go like that. It's not a flat curve in your day. In any given day, there are highs and there are lows, ups and downs. And some days we have great ups. We are at the top of the mountain. The world is perfect. Everything's going right. It's the best of days. And very often, these days are followed by a trough right down into the bottom. And we can't believe how life can take us from up here one day to way down here the next day. And if we live in the now all the time, and just in the now, then actually it's a bit of a roller coaster of emotions, where what we start doing is we start chasing the good emotions, the positive vibes, if you like. And it becomes to constantly try and get ourselves into that good place. But as Christians, it's not just this place that's important for us. Because yes, there is the now, but there is the added dimension of the not yet, the thing that is still going to come. And we look forward with hope. See, like Paul, we can put up with all the rubbish that this world throws our way because we know that there's something else beyond the rubbish. The rubbish is not the end point. It's kind of interesting that in some of the advice we're being given just now to look after our mental side is don't keep reading the news. Don't keep reading it all the time throughout the day because frankly it will get you depressed. And when we just keep reading the news all the time, what it does is it roots us in the now. And the now can be a very difficult place. And what's missing from the now, if you like, is the not yet, the something to look forward to that is better. One of the very things that Christianity brings to us in this world. Now, when is the last time that you lifted your eyes from where we are now and looked forward? And I don't mean forward next week. I mean really looked forward to the future that you and I have been promised by God. When is the last time that you and I reminded ourselves that our inheritance from God is the most amazing, most wonderful thing? And I've got to tell you, I would love to have seen what Paul saw in that vision that gave him that sense of hope for what was to come. If you know me, you know that one of my favourite books, I've mentioned this before in the podcast, and one of my favourite sets of movies is The Lord of the Rings. There is a bit of the book and a scene in the final film, The Return of the King, where Gandalf and Pippin are in Minas Tirith and the orcs are attacking. And it looks as if, well, this is it. It's curtains for everyone. It is the end. And Gandalf reminds Pippin that there is more that is yet to come. The clip's on YouTube, so I think it's fairly safe to show it to you. So we're going to watch just this clip now.
think it would end this way.
End? No, the journey doesn't end here. Death is just another path. One that we all must take. The grey rain curtain of this world rolls back, and all turns to silver glass. And then you see it.
What? Gandalf. See what?
White shores. And beyond. The far green country. And a swift sunrise.
That isn't so bad.
No. No, it isn't.
See how Gandalf reminded Pippin that there was more than just the troubles that we're going through now, that there was a future hope to look forward to. Well, it's really, really important that in these times that you and I remember our hope, that we remind ourselves every day that Christianity is about the here, but it's also about the not yet. It's about right now, and it's about the things that we look forward to. It's about what we have now, and it's about our inheritance with God. And it's really important that every day we remind ourselves of that, because that is one of the places where we find our hope. And that means that whatever happens to us today will not take away that hope, because we know in fact nothing can ever take away that hope. And we know that where we are now is not the end point. This is the transition point to the place we want to get to with God, the place where our hope will be realized. When Paul reminded himself of this, and if you read Paul's letters, it's right through the whole letters, but when Paul reminded himself of this, it gave him the strength to face whatever that day would bring his way. And I hope and pray that this wee reminder that our Christian faith is about far more than just the here and now, but is about the hope that is yet to come. I hope this reminder will help you to live and to know that hope for yourself, and that you will make it your companion in these very strange days, because with this companion you will be able to face today, tomorrow, and the day after. Thank you for listening, and God bless you all.